Okay, let's get started. Today is going to be lecture 4, combining like terms. We'll talk about it, how it's done, and we'll also do a couple examples from the problem sets. So when you combine like terms, you're either going to be adding or subtracting. So let me put that down. You're going to be adding or subtracting. So combine like terms. Question mark. Only when adding or subtracting. So only when you're adding or subtracting, that's when you're going to be combining like terms. So not when you're multiplying, not when you're dividing, not when you're taking something to a power. The only time that you combine like terms is when you're adding or subtracting. So let's do a couple from the problem sets. All right, let's take a look at number 1. So for number 1, we have n plus 4 plus 7 plus 6n. So what I want to do is I want to combine like terms. And remember, we only combine like terms when we're adding or subtracting. And in this case, we're adding everything. That's what the plus signs are for. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine like terms. What does that mean? Well, if they both end in a variable, those are going to be like terms. So I'm going to underline all the terms that end with a variable. N and 6n. Now we're going to put those together since those end with the same variable, but we're also going to put the 4 and the 7 together. And that's because these are both just regular numbers. So those are like terms. So the terms that I underlined in yellow, those are my variable terms. Those are like terms. And then the numbers that I underlined in blue, those are also going to be like terms because they look alike, They don't end with the same variable, and they're both regular numbers. So we're going to put those together. Okay? So what I'm going to do is whenever I have a single variable and I don't have a number out in front, by the way, that number is called the coefficient, I will put a 1 out in front. And that's because we weren't given a number at first. We're given a number over here for the 6n, but we're not given 1 over here. So I'm going to put a 1 out in front. And if there's no number, it's always assumed to be a positive 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 1n and the 6n to get 7n. And all I'm doing is I'm adding 1 and 6 and then ending with a variable. So I've got 7n, and then I'm going to add the regular numbers together, the 4 and the 7. So when I add those together, I get 11. And I'm done. So the only thing I'm doing is I'm putting the variable terms together first, and then I'm putting the regular numbers together second. And when you're adding or subtracting, that is called combining like terms. All right, let's do number 2. Number 2 is x minus 9 plus 10x plus 10x. So notice I have an x with no number out in front. So since there's no number out in front, I'm going to assume that there's a 1 out in front because I always assume that when I don't have a number offhand. Okay? Now, both of these terms that I underline are going to end with an x. So I'm going to put those together. But the negative 9 isn't going to combine with anything because there's no other number to put with it. So I'm just going to underline that one in blue. Okay? So let's put the x terms together first. I've got 1x plus 10x, 1 plus 10, that's going to be 11x. So I'm adding the numbers that are out in front, and I'm putting the variable at the end. And then this -9 over here, since it doesn't combine with anything, we're just going to bring it down the way it is. So I'm going to bring down that -9 to get 11x minus 9, and I'm done. So once you combine all the like terms together, then you'll be done. Is there anything you want to say about that, Coach?
No, just make sure that you don't forget to bring the signs down.
Yeah, that's important. Okay, let's move on to the next slide, and let's do a couple more from the problem set. Let's do number 3. Okay, number 3 is going to be k plus 4 plus 10k plus 7. Notice that the 4 and the 7 are just regular numbers, so I'm going to underline those. And then I'm going to change colors for the variables. I'm going to underline the 1k, and I'm going to underline the 10k. 1k plus 10k is going to give me 11k. And then 4 plus 7 is going to give me 11. And I'm done. Let's try number 4. 4 is going to be 3x minus 9x. 3x minus 9x. So for this one, notice that they're both ending in an x. Since they end with the same variable, they must be like terms, right? A positive 3x and a negative 9x. So if I do 3 minus 9, what do I get? 3 minus 9, that's going to give me -6. And since there's an x on both of these, I just bring down the x and I'm done. Both of those end with an x, therefore they are like terms, and there's no regular numbers with it, so I don't have to worry about those. -6x is going to be my answer. All right, let's look at 5. Five is 8b plus 7 plus 1 plus 7b. Okay, now I'm given this. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to underline my variable terms. So I'm going to underline the 8b and the 7b. When I put those together, I get 15b. And now I'm going to underline the regular numbers, the 7 and the 1. And they're going to add to give me 8. And that's it. 15b plus 8. That's going to be my answer. All right. I'm going to skip to number 8, and then I'm going to skip to number 10. Let's do number 8 over here. Number 8 is going to be 8x minus 8x. And number 10 is going to be -8 plus 4a plus 5. So we'll do these two. Okay, so number 8 is going to be 8x minus 8x. Notice that they both end with an x. So I'm going to underline these with the same color because they are like terms. And when I do 8 minus 8, I'm going to get 0, right? 0x, because I have to bring down the x, right? Well, if I have 0x, that would be the same thing as 0, right? Because if I have 0x, what I'm actually doing is I'm multiplying 0 by x. And anything times 0 is 0, right? So that's how I get 0 for my answer. And anytime you're subtracting and you have the same thing, when you subtract them, they basically cancel out, right? So that's another reason why I get 0 for my answer. All right. And then the last one we're going to do today, number 10, I'm going to underline the 4a in yellow. And I'm going to underline the regular numbers in blue. So the -8 and the 5. Those are like terms, right? Okay. So nothing is going to combine with the 4a, right? There's no other term that ends with an a that I see right here. So I'm just going to bring down the 4a as it is. And then I'm going to switch to blue, and I'm going to get the regular numbers. I've got -8 plus 5. What's -8 plus 5 going to be? That's going to be -3, right? Because -8 plus 5, the 8 is bigger, but it's negative. So you know when you add the two numbers together, your answer is going to be a negative number. So that's going to be -3. That gives me 4a minus 3. And that is combining like terms. That's pretty much all you need to know. Now, I am going to do one more question. This isn't one of those on the problem sets, but we'll do this one on the next slide. We'll just call this number 11. So let's take a look at number 11. I've got x squared plus 4x plus 5 plus 6x squared plus 2x minus 3. And the reason why I'm doing this one is because we have a lot of like terms here that we can underline. Much more than in previous problems, right? So I'm going to start off with yellow, and I'm going to underline like terms. I have an x squared right here. I underline that. This is actually a 1x squared, right? Since there's no number out in front, I assume there to be a 1 out in front. And that 1x squared is going to combine with this 6x squared because they both end with an x squared, right? They both end with an x squared. So if they end with the same thing, then they're going to be like terms, right? If I add those together, I have 1 plus 6. That's going to give me 7x squared. So that's the x squared terms. I put those together. And now I'm going to change my color to green, and I'm going to underline the x terms, all the terms that end with an x. So I'm going to underline the 4x and the 2x. And when I add those together, I'm going to get 6x. 6x, right? 4 plus 2. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to underline the regular numbers in blue, the 5 and the -3. So when I add 5 and -3, I get +2. And that's my answer. 7x squared plus 6x plus 2. So if something ends in the same way, you know that they're going to be like terms. And if you're adding or subtracting, that means that you can put those together. And that is combining like terms.